A crying 5-year-old in the rain changed a millionaire's life. Her wish was anything but simple. Logan Pierce sat trapped in his black Bentley, fingers drumming against Italian leather as the traffic crawled through downtown Seattle like blood through dying veins. The rain hammered his windshield with the fury of a woman scorned, which, he thought bitterly, was fitting. At 38, Logan had built an empire worth $200 million. But tonight, staring at the endless line of red taillights stretching into the darkness, he felt like the poorest man alive. The wipers swept back and forth in a hypnotic rhythm, each pass revealing more of the miserable world outside. Street vendors packed up their soggy goods. Homeless people huddled under whatever shelter they could find. The city looked like it was drowning, and Logan felt a twisted satisfaction in that. At least he wasn't the only one having a terrible night. His phone buzzed. Another text from his assistant about tomorrow's board meeting. Another crisis that needed his attention. Another fire to put out in the carefully constructed hell he called his life. He'd missed dinner again. Not that anyone was waiting for him. His penthouse apartment would be as cold and empty as it had been for the past 3 years, ever since Hannah had finally given up on their marriage and walked away. She said you were already dead inside. He muttered to himself, mimicking his ex-wife's voice. Guess she was right. The traffic lurched forward another few feet, and Logan pressed the accelerator with more force than necessary. The Bentley's engine purred like a contented cat, a sound that usually brought him satisfaction. Tonight, it just reminded him how alone he was in his expensive cage. That's when he saw her. At first, she was just a small shadow beneath the flickering street lamp on the corner of Pine and 3rd. But as his car crept closer, the shadow took shape. A tiny figure in what looked like a soaked pink dress, standing perfectly still in the downpour. Logan's breath caught in his throat. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. The little girl stood there like a statue, her dark hair plastered to her skull, her small shoulders shaking. Though whether from cold or something else, Logan couldn't tell from this distance. But even through the rain-streaked glass and the distance between them, he could see her face tilted up toward the sky, mouth open in what looked like a silent scream. Jesus Christ, Logan whispered, his hand moving instinctively toward the door handle before he caught himself. This wasn't his problem. Kids got separated from their parents all the time, especially in weather like this. Someone else would help her. Someone whose job it actually was to deal with situations like this. Logan had learned long ago that getting involved in other people's problems only led to disappointment and betrayal. But as the traffic crawled forward and the little girl grew smaller in his rearview mirror, something twisted in his chest, a feeling he'd spent years learning to ignore. He told himself it was indigestion from the gas station coffee he'd grabbed earlier. He told himself it was stress from the Patterson deal falling through. He told himself it was anything except what it actually was, the last flickering ember of the man he used to be, before life had beaten him down and taught him that caring about others was a luxury he couldn't afford. The traffic moved again, and Logan found himself in the left turn lane, heading toward his empty apartment and his empty life. In 30 seconds, he'd be gone, and the little girl would become someone else's problem, or no one's problem at all. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a news alert. Child trafficking ring busted in Seattle. The headline made his stomach clench, and suddenly the image of the little girl standing alone in the rain took on a darker, more terrifying possibility. Damn it, Logan growled, yanking the steering wheel hard to the right and pulling into the nearest parking space with a screech of tires. His heart was pounding as he turned off the engine, and he sat there for a moment, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. This is stupid, he told himself. This is exactly the kind of bleeding heart nonsense that Hannah always accused you of avoiding. But even as he said it, he was already opening the car door. The rain hit him like a slap in the face, instantly soaking through his $1,000 suit jacket. His Italian leather shoes splashed through puddles as he jogged back toward the corner, each step sending water up his legs. By the time he reached the street lamp, he was as soaked as the little girl he'd come to help. Up close, she was even more heartbreaking than he'd imagined. Her pink dress, which had probably been pretty once, hung off her tiny frame like a wet rag. Her feet were bare, pale and blue with cold, and there were streaks down her cheeks that could have been rain or tears or both. But it was her eyes that nearly broke him, wide and dark and filled with a terror so complete that Logan felt his own knees go weak. She was sobbing, not the loud, dramatic crying of a child throwing a tantrum, but the desperate, hiccuping sobs of someone who had screamed until there was nothing left. "Hey," Logan said softly, crouching down so he was at her eye level. Water dripped from his hair onto his face, but he barely noticed. "Hey, sweetheart, what's wrong?" The little girl looked up at him with those enormous eyes, and for a moment Logan thought she might run. He wouldn't blame her. A strange man approaching a child alone at night wasn't exactly a comforting sight, even with the best intentions. But instead of running, she opened her mouth and whispered four words that would haunt Logan for the rest of his life. "I can't find Mommy." The words hit him like a physical blow. Logan had dealt with hostile takeovers, boardroom betrayals, and the collapse of his marriage with steel-nerved composure. But something about the way this tiny girl said those four words, with such complete, devastating hope that he might be able to fix her world, nearly brought him to his knees. "Okay," he heard himself saying, though his voice sounded strange and distant. "Okay, we're going to find her. What's your name, sweetheart?" "Maya," she whispered, and then, as if the sound of her own name reminded her of something terrible, she began to cry again, harder this time, her small body shaking with the force of her sobs. Logan looked around desperately, as if Maya's mother might suddenly appear from behind a parked car or step out of one of the closed storefronts. But the street was empty except for the occasional car splashing through puddles and the distant sound of sirens. This was Seattle, after all. There were always sirens. "Maya," Logan said, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring even though his own heart was racing. "Where did you last see your mommy?" But Maya just shook her head, crying too hard to answer. Her lips were turning blue, and Logan realized that if he didn't get her out of the rain soon, hypothermia would become a bigger immediate threat than her missing mother. "Listen," Logan said, standing up and pulling off his suit jacket. It was already soaked, but it was better than nothing. He draped it around Maya's tiny shoulders, and she looked up at him with such gratitude that he felt his chest tighten again. "We need to get you somewhere warm and dry, okay? And then we're going to call some people who can help us find your mommy." Maya nodded, still crying but seeming to understand. Logan held out his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. Her small fingers were ice cold and trembling, and Logan felt a surge of protective anger that surprised him with its intensity. As they walked toward his car, Logan found himself making mental calculations. First, he'd take her somewhere warm, maybe that all-night diner on 4th Street. Then he'd call the police, maybe some hospitals. Missing kids got reported quickly, especially ones this young. This would all be sorted out within a few hours, and by morning it would be nothing more than a good deed he could feel slightly better about himself for doing. He had no idea that in helping this little girl, he was about to uncover a tragedy that would shatter everything he thought he knew about loss, love, and what it really meant to be alive. As Logan helped Maya into the passenger seat of his Bentley and cranked up the heat, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. His expensive suit was ruined, his hair was plastered to his head, and there was something in his eyes he hadn't seen in years, something that looked almost like hope. But if Logan had known what the next 24 hours would bring, the devastating truth about Maya's mother, the impossible choice he would have to make, and the phone call that would either save his soul or destroy what was left of his heart, he might have driven away after all. Instead, he put the car in drive and headed toward the diner, with a little girl who would change his life sitting beside him, still wearing his jacket like armor against a world that had already taken everything from her. The storm was just beginning. The Sunrise Diner looked like something out of a 1950s movie: red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, and a neon sign that flickered between open and "OP" in the rain. Logan had driven past this place 1,000 times on his way to early morning meetings, but he'd never actually been inside. It was the kind of establishment his circle would consider beneath them, which, Logan realized as he helped Maya out of the car, probably meant it was exactly where they needed to be. The bell above the door chimed as they entered, and every head in the place turned to stare. Logan supposed they made quite a sight: a soaked businessman in a ruined Armani suit and a tiny girl swimming in his jacket, both of them dripping puddles onto the worn linoleum floor. "Sweet Jesus," said the waitress behind the counter, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her name tag read Dolores. "Honey, What happened to you two? We got caught in the rain, Logan said, which was true enough. Could we get a booth, please? And maybe some hot chocolate for the little one. Dolores was already moving, grabbing a stack of clean dish towels from behind the counter. Of course, sugar. Y'all look like drowned rats. She led them to a corner booth and began spreading towels on the seats. I'll get that hot chocolate started. And how about some coffee for Daddy? I'm not. Logan started to correct her, then stopped. It would be easier this way. And besides, Maya was looking up at him with those huge dark eyes, as if his answer to this simple question might determine her entire future. Coffee would be great, he said instead. As Dolores bustled away, Logan helped Maya slide into the booth and then sat across from her. His jacket hung off her like a tent, but at least she'd stopped shivering. Her dark hair was starting to dry, revealing soft curls that framed her heart-shaped face. She was a beautiful child, the kind of kid you'd see in a clothing catalog or a holiday commercial, which made her current situation even more heartbreaking. Maya, Logan said gently, can you tell me about the last time you saw your mommy? Maya's lower lip began to tremble again, but she took a deep breath, a gesture so adult and controlled that it nearly broke Logan's heart. We were by the big building with all the lights, she said in a small voice. Mommy said she had to go somewhere, and I should wait. But then it got dark, and she didn't come back. Logan felt a chill that had nothing to do with his wet clothes. How long did you wait, sweetheart? I don't know, Maya whispered. A really long time. The lights went off in the building, and all the people went away, and it started raining, but Mommy still didn't come back. Which building? Logan asked, though he was beginning to suspect he knew the answer. There was only one building in this part of downtown that Maya would describe that way. The really tall one with the shiny windows, Maya said, and Logan's heart sank. She was talking about the Blackstone Tower, his building, the place where he'd spent the evening in yet another mind-numbing board meeting while a 5-year-old child waited in the rain for a mother who might never come back. Dolores returned with their drinks, setting a steaming mug of hot chocolate in front of Maya and a cup of coffee that smelled like heaven in front of Logan. Here you go, baby girl, she said to Maya with a warmth that made Logan's chest ache. I put extra marshmallows in there, just the way my granddaughter likes it. Maya looked up at Dolores with wonder, as if the concept of extra marshmallows was the most magical thing she'd ever heard. Thank you, she whispered, wrapping her small hands around the mug. Now, Dolores said, turning to Logan with a look that was part concerned grandmother, part seasoned waitress who'd seen everything. You want to tell me what's really going on here? Because that little angel doesn't look like she belongs to you. No offense. Logan felt his face flush. You're right. I found her on Pine Street, alone in the rain. She's lost, and I'm trying to help her find her mother. Have you called the police? Not yet. I was hoping. Logan trailed off, realizing how foolish he sounded. What had he been hoping? That Maya's mother would magically appear? That this would somehow resolve itself without getting authorities involved? Honey, Dolores said, her voice gentle but firm. You need to call the police. Tonight. A child this young doesn't just get lost. Something's happened. Logan nodded, knowing she was right. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911, explaining the situation to the dispatcher while Maya sipped her hot chocolate and stared out the rain-streaked window. The dispatcher told him an officer would be there within 20 minutes. They're coming, Logan told Maya, sliding his phone back into his pocket. And they're going to help us find your mommy. Maya nodded solemnly, but Logan could see the fear creeping back into her eyes. She understood, on some level that no 5-year-old should have to understand, that adults didn't always keep their promises. While they waited, Logan ordered Maya a grilled cheese sandwich and some chicken soup, comfort food that she attacked with the desperate hunger of someone who hadn't eaten in hours. Watching her eat, Logan found himself studying her face, looking for clues about her life. Her clothes had been nice once. The pink dress was well made, though now stained and torn. Her hair had been styled carefully before the rain destroyed it. Someone had loved this child, had taken care of her. So where was that someone now? Officer Martinez arrived exactly 20 minutes later, a kind-faced woman in her 40s who immediately put Maya at ease by crouching down to her level and speaking in the same gentle tone Dolores had used. Hi Maya, she said. My name is Carmen, and I'm here to help you find your mommy. Can you tell me your mommy's name? Sarah, Maya said without hesitation. Sarah Collins. Officer Martinez made a note. And do you know where you live, honey? What street? Maya's face scrunched up in concentration. Um, there's a park with swings and a store where mommy buys milk. Logan watched as Officer Martinez patiently tried to extract more specific information, but it quickly became clear that Maya knew her world in the way that small children do, through landmarks and feelings rather than addresses and phone numbers. She knew her mother's name. She knew they lived in an apartment with a red door, and she knew that her mother worked cleaning offices at night. But she didn't know their address, their phone number, or even what neighborhood they lived in. Mr. Pierce, Officer Martinez said, turning to Logan after she'd exhausted her questions. Can I speak with you privately for a moment? They stepped away from the booth, leaving Maya with Dolores, who had taken it upon herself to color with the child using crayons from behind the counter. I've run the name Sarah Collins through our system, Officer Martinez said quietly. We have 17 Sarah Collinses in the Seattle area, but none of them have reported a missing child tonight. I've also checked with area hospitals and shelters. No one matching Maya's description has been reported missing. Logan felt his stomach drop. What does that mean? It could mean several things, Officer Martinez said carefully. Maya's mother might not realize she's missing yet, though given that it's been hours, that seems unlikely. She might be unable to report it. Maybe she's hurt or incapacitated somehow. Or, she paused, glancing back at Maya, who was now giggling at something Dolores had drawn. Mr. Pierce, children Maya's age don't typically wander far from home on their own. If she was found downtown and her mother hasn't reported her missing, we need to consider that this might not be a simple case of a lost child. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to prepare for the possibility that Maya's situation is more complicated than it appears. Child abandonment, neglect, trafficking. These are realities we have to consider. Logan felt the blood drain from his face. The thought that someone might have intentionally hurt or abandoned Maya made him feel physically sick. So what happens now? Well, normally in a situation like this, we'd take Maya to Child Protective Services for the night while we investigate. She'd be placed in emergency foster care until we can locate her mother or other relatives. Foster care. Logan's voice came out sharper than he'd intended. You mean with strangers? Officer Martinez nodded. It's not ideal, but it's protocol. These emergency placements are temporary, and the families are thoroughly vetted. No. The word came out of Logan's mouth before he'd consciously decided to speak. Both he and Officer Martinez stared at each other in surprise. Excuse me. Logan looked back at Maya, who was still coloring happily with Dolores, completely unaware that her fate was being decided by adults around her. The thought of this little girl, who had already been through God knows what tonight, being handed off to yet another stranger made something fierce and protective rise up in Logan's chest. There has to be another option, he said. What if she stayed with someone she's already met? Someone she trusts? Officer Martinez followed his gaze to Maya and then looked back at him with understanding in her eyes. Mr. Pierce, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but you can't just take custody of a child you found on the street. There are procedures, background checks, home studies. What if it wasn't me? Logan said suddenly, the idea forming even as he spoke. What if there was someone else? Someone who's already been cleared to care for children? Officer Martinez raised an eyebrow. Do you know someone like that? Logan thought about Hannah, about the way she'd always lit up around children, about how she'd volunteered at the children's hospital every weekend, about how she'd begged him for years to start a family before finally giving up on him entirely. Hannah, who had a teaching degree and had been a licensed foster parent during her first marriage. Hannah, who lived 20 minutes away and who might be the only person Logan knew who would open her door at midnight for a scared little girl. Maybe, Logan said. Let me make a phone call. As Logan stepped outside into the rain to call his ex-wife, he had no idea that this decision, this desperate attempt to keep Maya safe for one more night, would set in motion a chain of events that would either give him everything he'd never known he wanted or destroy what was left of his carefully constructed emotional walls. All he knew was that he couldn't let Maya disappear into the system. Not tonight. Not when she'd looked at him with those trusting eyes and called him the closest thing to a father she had left in the world. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and Logan found himself praying to a God he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. Please, he whispered into the ring. Please let her answer. Hannah Pierce, she'd kept his name even after the divorce, which had surprised Logan more than he'd cared to admit, lived in a restored craftsman bungalow in the Wallingford neighborhood, the kind of house she'd always dreamed of owning during their marriage. Logan had been too busy building his empire to pay attention to her dreams back then, dismissing her desire for a real home as sentimental nonsense. Now, standing on her front porch at nearly midnight with a sleeping 5-year-old in his arms, he understood what she'd been trying to tell him. The house had warmth radiating from every carefully chosen detail. The vintage porch swing, the flower boxes under the windows, the soft glow of lamplight through cream-colored curtains. It was everything their sterile penthouse apartment had never been, a place where someone actually lived, rather than just existed. Logan shifted Maya's weight against his chest and pressed the doorbell, his heart hammering against his ribs. He hadn't seen Hannah in 8 months, not since they'd signed the final divorce papers in their lawyer's office. Both of them too emotionally exhausted to do anything but shake hands and walk away from the wreckage of their 7-year marriage. The porch light flickered on, and Logan heard footsteps inside. Through the frosted glass panel beside the door, he could see Hannah's silhouette approaching, smaller than he remembered, more fragile somehow. The locks turned. 3 of them, he noted, wondering when Hannah had become the kind of person who needed 3 locks to feel safe. The door opened, and there she was. Hannah at 35 was even more beautiful than she'd been at 28, when Logan had first spotted her across a crowded charity gala and decided he had to have her. Her auburn hair was longer now, falling in soft waves past her shoulders instead of the sleek bob she'd worn during their marriage. She was wearing an old Georgetown University sweatshirt and flannel pajama pants, and her face was bare of makeup, revealing the constellation of freckles across her nose that Logan had once loved to kiss. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold, the same warm hazel eyes that had once looked at him with such love and hope, now filled with a mixture of shock, concern, and something that might have been carefully guarded wariness. Logan. Her voice was exactly as he remembered it, soft, with just a hint of the southern accent she'd never quite lost despite 20 years in Seattle. "What are you?" Her gaze dropped to the child in his arms, and her expression shifted instantly from confusion to alarm. "Oh my God, is she okay?" "She's fine," Logan said quickly. "She's sleeping." "Hannah, I know this is crazy, and I know I have no right to show up here like this, but I didn't know where else to go." Hannah's protective instincts kicked in immediately, the same instincts Logan had always admired and never understood until now. She stepped aside without hesitation, gesturing him into the living room. "Bring her in here," she said, leading him to a cream-colored sofa that looked infinitely more comfortable than any piece of furniture Logan owned. "Put her down gently." Logan carefully laid Maya on the couch, and Hannah immediately went into what he recognized as her nurturing mode, the same focused attention she'd once given to her students, her volunteer work, the stray animals she was always bringing home. She found a throw blanket from somewhere and tucked it around Maya's small form, her movements gentle and sure. "She's beautiful," Hannah whispered, brushing a curl away from Maya's forehead. "Logan, what's going on? Whose child is this?" "I don't know," Logan said, and Hannah looked up at him sharply. "I found her downtown, alone in the rain. She's lost, Hannah. Her mother is missing, and the police, they want to put her in emergency foster care while they investigate." Hannah stood slowly, her eyes never leaving Maya's sleeping face. "And you brought her here because—" This was the moment Logan had been dreading. The moment when he'd have to explain why he'd driven across town to the home of a woman who had every reason to hang up on him, let alone help him. The moment when he'd have to admit that in his hour of desperate need, Hannah was still the only person he trusted. "Because you're the only person I know who actually knows how to take care of a child," he said simply. "Because you're licensed as a foster parent. Because you're—" He paused, struggling to find words for feelings he'd spent 3 years avoiding. "Because you're good, Hannah. You're the kind of person who opens their door at midnight when someone needs help." Hannah stared at him for a long moment, and Logan could see her processing not just his words, but everything beneath them. The admission of his own inadequacy, the implicit acknowledgement of what their marriage had lacked, the desperate vulnerability he was trying so hard to hide. "Logan," she said finally, her voice carefully neutral. "You can't just show up here with a child and expect me to." "I'm not expecting anything," Logan said quickly. "I'm asking. I'm begging, actually. Just for tonight. until we can figure out what to do. Officer Martinez said if there was someone already qualified to care for children, someone Maya had already met. She's met me for 30 seconds while she was unconscious, Hannah pointed out. But she's met me, Logan said. And she trusts me. And if you help her, maybe she'll trust you too. Hannah looked down at Maya again, and Logan could see the exact moment when the child's defenseless sleep made the decision for her. Hannah had always been a sucker for anything lost or hurt. It was one of the things that had drawn Logan to her in the first place, and one of the things that had driven him crazy about her later. One night, she said firmly, "I'll call child services in the morning and explain the situation. They'll need to do a home check, paperwork, all of that. This is completely irregular, Logan." "I know. Thank you." The relief in Logan's voice was audible, and Hannah's expression softened slightly. "Sit down," she said. "You look terrible. I'll make some coffee, and you can tell me exactly how you ended up with a lost child on a Tuesday night." As Hannah moved toward the kitchen, Logan sank into an armchair that was probably older than his car, but infinitely more comfortable. The living room was quintessentially Hannah. Warm colors, books everywhere, fresh flowers on the mantel despite the season. There was a reading nook by the window, a yoga mat rolled up in the corner, and photographs covering every surface: friends, family, students from her teaching days. What struck Logan most forcefully was how alive this space felt. His penthouse was a monument to his success, all sharp angles and expensive materials designed to impress rather than comfort. Hannah's home was designed for living, for curling up with a good book, for having friends over for dinner, for all the simple pleasures Logan had convinced himself he was too important to enjoy. "Here," Hannah said, returning with 2 steaming mugs. She'd made his coffee exactly the way he liked it, black, with just a touch of cream, and Logan felt an unexpected stab of emotion at the realization that she still remembered. "Thank you," he said, accepting the mug and trying not to notice the way their fingers brushed as she handed it to him. Hannah settled into the opposite end of the couch, careful not to disturb Maya, and fixed Logan with the kind of steady gaze that had always made him want to confess his sins. "Start from the beginning," she said. So Logan did. He told her about the traffic, about seeing Maya alone under the streetlight, about the diner and Officer Martinez, and the terrible realization that this little girl might have been abandoned or worse. He told her about the way Maya had looked at him with complete trust, and how that trust had made him feel simultaneously honored and terrified. What he didn't tell her was how holding Maya in his arms had awakened something in him that he'd thought was dead, some protective instinct he'd never known he possessed. He didn't tell her how Maya's small hand in his had felt like the most natural thing in the world, or how the thought of her disappearing into the foster system had made him physically ill. And he definitely didn't tell her that sitting in this warm, welcoming house with Hannah's concerned eyes on him and a sleeping child between them felt more like home than anywhere he'd been in 3 years. "Logan," Hannah said when he'd finished his story, "what aren't you telling me?" The question caught him off guard, though it shouldn't have. Hannah had always been able to read him like a book, even when he was trying his hardest to keep his pages closed. "What do you mean? You found a lost child and called the police. That's what any decent person would do. But you didn't just call the police, Logan. You bought her clothes, fed her, stayed with her for hours, and then drove across town to your ex-wife's house rather than let her go into emergency care. That's not just being a good Samaritan. That's—" She paused, studying his face. "That's someone who's formed an attachment." Logan felt his defenses rising, the same walls he'd spent years building to protect himself from exactly this kind of emotional vulnerability. "I just wanted to make sure she was safe. Logan." Hannah's voice was gentle but implacable. "I lived with you for 7 years. I know what you look like when you're trying to convince yourself you don't care about something you actually care about very much." The accusation hung in the air between them, and Logan found himself looking anywhere except at Hannah's too perceptive eyes. His gaze fell on Maya, still sleeping peacefully on the couch, one small hand curled against her cheek. "She reminds me of you," he said quietly, the admission slipping out before he could stop it. "When she looks at me, it's the way you used to look at me. Like I'm someone worth trusting. Like I'm—" He swallowed hard. "Like I'm better than I actually am." Hannah was quiet for a long moment, and when Logan finally looked up, he saw something in her expression that he'd thought was gone forever. Not love, exactly, but a kind of tender understanding that made his chest ache. "Logan," she said softly. What happened to us? It was the question they'd never asked during their divorce proceedings, too angry and hurt to examine the slow dissolution of their marriage with any real honesty. It was the question that had haunted Logan during the lonely nights in his empty penthouse, the one he'd never allowed himself to answer. I happened to us, he said finally. I thought success would be enough. I thought if I could build something big enough, important enough, it would fill whatever was missing. But it just made the emptiness bigger. And now, Logan looked at Maya again, this little girl who'd stumbled into his life and somehow managed to crack open the vault where he'd locked away his capacity for love. Now I think maybe I was wrong about what I needed, he said. Before Hannah could respond, Logan's phone rang, the harsh sound jarring in the soft quiet of the living room. He glanced at the screen and saw Officer Martinez's number. I have to take this, he said, stepping into the hallway. Mr. Pierce. Officer Martinez's voice was strained. I have some news about Maya's mother. Logan's stomach clenched. Did you find her? We found Sarah Collins, Officer Martinez said. Mr. Pierce, I'm sorry to have to tell you this over the phone, but Maya's mother is dead. The words hit Logan like a physical blow. He sagged against Hannah's hallway wall, his legs suddenly unsteady. What happened? She was found in an alley behind the Blackstone Tower about 2 hours ago. Apparent overdose. The coroner estimates she died sometime yesterday evening, which means Maya was alone all night. Logan finished, his voice hollow. She was waiting for someone who was never coming back. I'm afraid so. Mr. Pierce, this changes things. Maya isn't just lost. She's an orphan. We'll need to contact Child Services immediately, start the process of finding relatives, or placing her in long-term care. Logan closed his eyes, seeing Maya's trusting face, hearing her small voice saying, I can't find Mommy. She'd been waiting for her mother while her mother lay dying just blocks away. The cruelty of it made Logan want to put his fist through Hannah's wall. Mr. Pierce? Are you there? I'm here, Logan said. What happens now? A social worker will come by in the morning to interview Maya and assess her situation. In the meantime, she can stay where she is, assuming Mrs. Pierce is still willing to help. Logan looked through the doorway at Hannah, who was sitting beside Maya on the couch, gently stroking the child's curls while she slept. Even from a distance, he could see the protective tenderness in Hannah's posture, the way she'd naturally positioned herself as a shield between Maya and the world. I think she is, Logan said. Officer Martinez, what are the chances Maya has other family? Relatives who might take her? We're looking into it, but frankly, the odds aren't good. Sarah Collins was homeless, struggling with addiction. If there were family members in a position to help, Maya probably wouldn't have been on the streets to begin with. After hanging up, Logan stood in Hannah's hallway for a long moment, trying to process what he'd just learned. Maya wasn't just a lost little girl who would be reunited with her mother in the morning. She was an orphan who had no one left in the world except the strangers who'd shown her kindness in her darkest hour. When he returned to the living room, Hannah looked up at him with knowing eyes. Bad news? She asked softly. The worst, Logan said, and told her everything. Hannah listened in silence, her hand never stopping its gentle motion through Maya's hair. When Logan finished, she was quiet for a long time, staring down at the sleeping child with an expression Logan couldn't quite read. That poor baby, she whispered finally. She's been through so much. Hannah, Logan said, sitting down across from her. I need to ask you something, and I need you to know that I'll understand completely if you say no. Hannah looked up at him, and Logan saw something shift in her expression, a wariness that reminded him of all the times during their marriage when he'd asked for something that required her to sacrifice while he gained. What is it? What if we kept her? The words tumbled out before Logan could second-guess himself. What if we didn't let her go into the system? What if we? He struggled to find the right words. What if we became her family? Hannah stared at him in shock. Logan, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Logan leaned forward, his voice intense. Hannah, look at her. She's been abandoned by everyone who was supposed to protect her. She's going to end up bounced between foster homes, maybe for years. But she trusts us. For whatever reason, she feels safe with us. With you? Hannah corrected. She doesn't even know me. But she will. And Hannah, you've always wanted children. You've always said you had so much love to give, and I was too selfish to. Stop. Hannah's voice was sharp, cutting through his desperate plea. Don't you dare make this about our marriage. Don't you dare try to fix what you broke by using that little girl. Logan felt the words hit him like a slap, but he pressed on. That's not what this is. This is about Maya needing a family, and us being able to give her one. Us. Hannah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Logan, there is no us. We're divorced. We haven't spoken in 8 months. You can't just show up here with a child and expect me to play house with you. I'm not asking you to play house, Logan said desperately. I'm asking you to help save a little girl's life. Hannah stood up abruptly, moving away from the couch as if she needed distance from both Logan and the sleeping child. You don't understand what you're asking. Adoption isn't a business deal you can negotiate. It's a lifetime commitment. It's getting up at 3 a.m. when she has nightmares about her mother. It's helping her with homework and scraped knees and broken hearts. It's being there every single day, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when there's a board meeting or a merger or whatever else you think is more important. Each word felt like an indictment of the man Logan had been during their marriage, and he knew Hannah was right to doubt him. He had a track record of putting his work first, of disappearing when things got difficult, of making promises he couldn't keep. You're right, he said quietly. I don't have the best track record with commitment. But Hannah, something happened to me tonight. When I saw Maya standing in that rain, something inside me just broke open. And when I think about her disappearing into the foster system, about her growing up thinking that no one wanted her, his voice cracked. I can't bear it. Hannah turned to look at him, and Logan saw his own pain reflected in her eyes. Logan, wanting to help her isn't enough. Good intentions aren't enough. Children need stability, consistency, unconditional love. Then teach me, Logan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Hannah, I know I failed you. I know I wasn't the husband you deserved, and I know I have no right to ask for another chance. But Maya needs both of us. She needs your heart and my resources. She needs. He swallowed hard. She needs the family we never had the chance to be. Hannah was quiet for a long moment, looking back and forth between Logan and Maya. When she spoke again, her voice was thoughtful rather than angry. Logan, even if we wanted to do this, and I'm not saying we do, it's not that simple. We're divorced. Single-parent adoption is difficult enough, but trying to adopt as a divorced couple who want to co-parent? Social services would never approve it. Logan felt something cold settle in his stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying that if we were serious about this, and again, I'm not saying we are, we'd need to present as a unified family unit. We'd need to. She paused, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was about to say. We'd need to be married. The words hung in the air between them like a challenge. Logan stared at Hannah, seeing not the woman who'd divorced him for his emotional unavailability, but the woman who'd once loved him enough to build a life with him. The woman who was even now considering turning her entire world upside down for a child she'd known for less than an hour. Would you? Logan asked quietly. If it meant giving Maya a real family, would you consider it? Hannah looked at Maya again, and Logan saw the exact moment when the child's innocence and vulnerability won the battle against Hannah's better judgment. I would want conditions, she said finally. Non-negotiables. Logan's heart began to race. Name them. First, this wouldn't be about us. This would be about Maya, and only Maya. Whatever issues we have, whatever history we have, it gets put aside for her sake. Agreed. Second, if we do this, we do it right. No cutting corners, no using your money to speed things up. We go through every required step, every evaluation, every home study. We prove that we're worthy of her. Agreed. Third, Hannah said, and her voice became even more serious. If we take her, we keep her. No matter what. No matter if it's harder than we thought. No matter if we realize we've made a mistake. We don't abandon her the way everyone else in her life has. Hannah, I would never. You abandoned me, Hannah said quietly, and Logan felt the words hit him like a physical blow. When our marriage got difficult, when I needed you most, you disappeared into your work. You can't do that to her, Logan. She's been abandoned enough for one lifetime. Logan looked at Maya, still sleeping peacefully despite the life-altering conversation happening around her. This tiny girl who'd lost everything, who'd waited in the rain for a mother who would never come home, who'd placed her trust in a broken man who barely knew how to trust himself. I won't abandon her, he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. Hannah, I know I failed you. I know I was a terrible husband. But I swear to you, On everything I have. I will not fail her. Hannah studied his face for a long moment, and Logan forced himself to let her see everything. The regret, the determination, the desperate love for a child he'd known for less than 12 hours. There's one more condition, Hannah said finally. What? We do this as a real family, not as business partners or co-parents or whatever arrangement you're imagining. If we're going to give Maya the stability she needs, we need to give her parents who are actually committed to each other. That means working on us, Logan. That means marriage counseling and hard conversations and all the emotional work you spent 7 years avoiding. Logan felt his chest tighten. Hannah was asking him to tear down every wall he'd built, to expose every vulnerability he'd spent years protecting. She was asking him to risk his heart all over again with a woman who had every reason not to trust him. But as he looked at Maya, this beautiful, broken little girl who'd somehow found her way into both their lives, Logan realized that his heart was already at risk. Had been from the moment he'd crouched down beside her in the rain and promised to help her find her mommy. Okay, he said. All of it. Whatever it takes. Hannah nodded slowly. Then we'll call the social worker in the morning and tell them we want to apply for emergency guardianship pending adoption proceedings. You mean it? We're really going to do this. We're going to try, Hannah said. But Logan, this is the biggest leap of faith I've ever taken. Don't make me regret it. As if she'd heard her future parents planning her fate, Maya stirred on the couch, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around Hannah's living room with momentary confusion before her gaze found Logan, and a smile spread across her small face. Hi, she said sleepily. Hi, sweetheart, Logan said, moving to sit beside her. How are you feeling? Better, Maya said, then looked at Hannah with shy curiosity. Who's the pretty lady? Hannah's heart melted visibly. I'm Hannah, she said, sitting on Maya's other side. I'm a friend of Logan's. Are you going to help find my mommy too? Logan felt his throat close up, but Hannah answered with gentle honesty. Maya, sweetheart, we need to talk to you about your mommy. But first, are you hungry? I could make some pancakes. Maya's eyes lit up. Pancakes. The best pancakes in Seattle, Hannah promised, and Logan watched in amazement as this woman who'd had every reason to send them both away instead began the process of welcoming a lost child into her heart and home. As Hannah headed to the kitchen and Maya curled up against Logan's side, chattering about her favorite pancake toppings, Logan realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about tomorrow's meetings or next quarter's profits or any of the things that had once seemed so important. He was thinking about bedtime stories and scraped knees and school plays. He was thinking about Christmas mornings and birthday parties and all the small, precious moments that made up a real life. He was thinking about becoming the kind of man who deserved the trust of a 5-year-old girl and the love of a woman who'd already given him more second chances than he had any right to expect. The hardest parts were still ahead, telling Maya about her mother, navigating the adoption process, rebuilding a marriage that had fallen apart once before. But as Logan listened to Maya's excited chatter about pancakes and watched Hannah move around her kitchen with the natural grace of someone who was born to nurture, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The pancakes were perfect, golden brown, fluffy, and shaped like Mickey Mouse heads because Hannah had found novelty molds in the back of her cabinet. Maya ate them with the focused intensity of someone making up for missed meals, syrup dripping down her chin as she chattered happily about everything and nothing. Watching her, Logan marveled at children's resilience. Less than 12 hours ago, Maya had been sobbing alone in the rain. Now she was giggling at Hannah's silly jokes and asking for seconds, as if she'd always lived in this warm kitchen with these two adults who were already reorganizing their entire lives around her needs. But Logan knew that the hardest conversation was still ahead of them. They'd managed to distract Maya through breakfast, but they couldn't put off telling her about her mother forever. The social worker would arrive at 10, just 2 hours away, and Maya deserved to hear the truth from people who cared about her rather than from a stranger with a clipboard. Maya, Hannah said gently, sitting down at the table with her own cup of coffee. Can we talk to you about something important? Maya looked up from her pancakes, syrup-sticky fingers pausing halfway to her mouth. Some instinct, the same one that had probably kept her alive on the streets, made her go very still. Is it about mommy? She asked in a small voice. Logan felt his heart break all over again. Yes, sweetheart. It's about mommy. Maya set down her fork and looked back and forth between Logan and Hannah with eyes that seemed far too old for her 5-year-old face. She's not coming back, is she? The simple question, asked with such devastating acceptance, nearly destroyed Logan's composure. How did a child so young already understand abandonment so completely? No, baby, Hannah said softly, reaching across the table to take Maya's sticky hand. She's not coming back. Maya, your mommy got very sick, and the sickness made her go to sleep forever. Maya stared at Hannah for a long moment, processing this information with the careful attention of someone who'd learned early that adults' words often carried hidden meanings. Like when my goldfish went to sleep forever? She asked. Yes, Hannah said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Just like that. Maya nodded solemnly, then looked at Logan. Are you going to go away too? The question hit Logan like a punch to the chest. No, he said firmly. No, Maya, I'm not going anywhere. Neither is Hannah. We're going to take care of you. Forever. Logan looked at Hannah, seeing his own emotions reflected in her face. Love, determination, and a fierce protectiveness that surprised them both with its intensity. Forever, Hannah said. If you want us to. Maya considered this, her small face serious. What if I'm bad? What if I cry too much, or make messes, or forget to use my inside voice? Maya, Logan said, moving his chair closer to hers so he could look directly into her eyes. Nothing you could do would make us stop loving you. Nothing you could say or think or feel would make us go away. Do you understand? Maya stared at him for a long moment, and Logan could see her trying to decide whether to trust this promise that probably sounded too good to be true. Mommy used to say that, she said finally. But then she started getting sick a lot, and she would go away for long times, and when she came back she would be different, sad and sleepy, and Maya's voice got very quiet. Scary sometimes. Logan felt a surge of rage at Maya's mother, followed immediately by a wave of compassion. Sarah Collins had been struggling with addiction while trying to raise a child on the streets, a battle that very few people could win. She'd probably loved Maya as much as she was capable of loving anyone, but love wasn't always enough when demons were involved. Maya, Hannah said gently, your mommy loved you very much, but she was fighting a sickness that made it hard for her to take care of you the way you deserved. That wasn't your fault, sweetheart. None of it was your fault. I know, Maya said, with the matter-of-fact tone of a child who'd been forced to understand adult problems far too early. Mommy told me the medicine made her sick, but she needed it so she wouldn't hurt so much inside. Logan and Hannah exchanged a look over Maya's head. How much had this little girl seen? How much had she had to grow up before she'd even started kindergarten? Well, Hannah said, forcing brightness into her voice, you don't have to worry about taking care of anyone else anymore. From now on, Logan and I are going to take care of you. Would you like that? Maya nodded, then asked the question that revealed just how much she'd already figured out about her situation. Are you going to be my new mommy and daddy? Logan felt his breath catch. They'd talked about adoption, about becoming Maya's family, but hearing it put so simply by the child herself made it real in a way that all their adult conversations hadn't. Would you want us to be? Hannah asked softly. Maya looked back and forth between them, her expression thoughtful. You're nice to me, she said finally. And you make good pancakes. And Logan has a really soft jacket. Despite everything, Logan found himself smiling. Is that a yes? Yes, Maya said, then added with 5-year-old practicality. But I don't know what to call you. I can't call you Mommy and Daddy because those were Mommy and Daddy names, even though I didn't have a daddy. Hannah's heart clenched. What would you like to call us? Maya thought about this seriously. Can I call you Hannah and Logan until I think of something better? Of course, Logan said. You can call us whatever feels right to you. Before Maya could respond, the doorbell rang. Logan glanced at the kitchen clock, 9:30 a.m. The social worker was early. That's probably Ms. Rodriguez, Hannah said, standing up. She's the lady who's going to help us make sure you can stay with us, Maya. She's going to ask you some questions, okay? Just tell her the truth about everything. Maya nodded, but Logan could see anxiety creeping into her expression. Will you stay with me? Every second, Logan promised. Maria Rodriguez turned out to be a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and the sort of calm competence that came from years of dealing with children in crisis. She spoke to Maya with the same gentle respect Hannah had shown, never talking down to her or treating her like a victim. Maya, she said, settling into Hannah's living room with a clipboard and a warm smile. I heard you had a pretty scary night. Can you tell me what happened? Maya, sitting between Logan and Hannah on the couch, told her story in the simple, direct way of children. How Mommy had told her to wait by the big building, how it got dark and started raining, how Logan had found her and brought her somewhere warm. And how do you feel about staying with Logan and Hannah? Ms. Rodriguez asked. Good, Maya said without hesitation. They're nice, and they make pancakes, and they said they won't go away. Ms. Rodriguez made some notes, then turned to Logan and Hannah. I have to tell you, this is highly irregular. Emergency guardianship is typically granted to relatives or licensed foster families, not to. She paused diplomatically. Not to divorced couples. We're not divorced anymore, Hannah said suddenly, and Logan felt his heart stop. Ms. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. Hannah looked at Logan, and he saw a determination in her eyes that reminded him of all the reasons he'd fallen in love with her in the first place. We reconciled, Hannah said firmly. Recently. We were working through some issues, but Maya's situation has made us realize what's really important. Logan stared at Hannah, amazed by her ability to spin their complicated situation into something that sounded like a romantic reunion rather than a desperate arrangement for a child's benefit. I see, Ms. Rodriguez said, making more notes. And you're both committed to providing Maya with a stable, permanent home? Absolutely, Logan said, finding his voice. We want to adopt her. Well, that's a process that will take time. Background checks, home studies, evaluations. It could be months before an adoption is finalized. In the meantime, if you're approved for emergency guardianship, Maya could stay with you while we work through the legal requirements. Maya looked up at Logan with hopeful eyes. Does that mean I can live here? If Ms. Rodriguez thinks it's the right thing for you, Logan said carefully. Ms. Rodriguez spent another hour interviewing them, asking about their finances. Excellent. Thanks to Logan's business success. Their living arrangements. Hannah's house was perfect for a child. Their support systems. Hannah's teaching background and Logan's resources. And their long-term plans. 100% committed to making Maya part of their family. I'll need to do a home inspection and run background checks on both of you, she said finally. But preliminarily, I'm inclined to approve emergency guardianship. Maya clearly feels safe with you both, and frankly, she's been through enough disruption. If we can provide her with stability while we work through the adoption process, that's in her best interest. After Ms. Rodriguez left, the three of them sat in Hannah's living room, processing what had just happened. So I can stay? Maya asked. You can stay, Hannah confirmed. Maya nodded, then looked around the room with the appraising eye of someone planning to make herself at home. Can I have the room with the flowers on the wall? Hannah laughed. That's the guest room. But we'll need to make it into a little girl's room, won't we? With toys and books and whatever else you like. I like unicorns, Maya said. And books about dogs. And crayons. Then that's what we'll get, Logan said. Already mentally planning a shopping trip that would make toys or us executives weep with joy. As Maya wandered off to explore her new room, Hannah and Logan found themselves alone for the first time since the night before. Hannah, Logan said quietly. What you did back there, telling Ms. Rodriguez we were back together. I wasn't lying, Hannah said, and Logan felt his world tilt on its axis. What do you mean? Hannah looked toward the hallway where Maya had disappeared, then back at Logan. I mean, we are back together, Logan. Maybe not the way we were before, maybe not for the reasons we were before, but we're committed to this child. And that means we're committed to each other. For better or worse, right? Logan stared at her, seeing not his ex-wife, but the woman who'd just turned her entire life upside down for a child she'd known for 12 hours. The woman who was willing to risk her heart again on a man who'd already broken it once. Hannah, are you sure about this? Really sure? Because once we start this process, once Maya gets attached to us as a family unit, we can't change our minds. We can't decide 6 months from now that it's too hard or too complicated. I know, Hannah said simply. Logan, I watched you with her last night and this morning. I saw the way you looked at her, the way you protected her, the way you were willing to do anything to keep her safe. That's not the man I divorced 3 years ago. What if it is? Logan asked, voicing his deepest fear. What if I'm still the same selfish bastard who put work before everything else? What if I fail her the way I failed you? Hannah reached out and took his hand, the first time she'd voluntarily touched him in years. Then we'll deal with it, she said. But Logan, people can change. Circumstances can change us. And that little girl has already changed you in ways you probably don't even realize yet. Logan looked down at their joined hands, marveling at how right it felt after all this time. I love her already, he said quietly. Is that crazy? I've known her for less than a day, and I love her like she's been mine her whole life. It's not crazy, Hannah said. It's beautiful. And Logan? I love her too. From the hallway came the sound of Maya's voice, singing softly to herself as she explored her new room. It was a simple children's song about sunshine and rainbows, but to Logan it sounded like the most beautiful music he'd ever heard. So what now, he asked. Now we become a family, Hannah said. The real thing this time. No half measures, no emotional walls, no putting anything else before what we're building together. Logan lifted their joined hands and kissed Hannah's knuckles, a gesture from their early dating days that made her breath catch. I love you, he said. I never stopped loving you, Hannah. I just forgot how to show it. But I'm going to learn. For you and for Maya. I'm going to learn how to be the man you both deserve. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I've been trying not to for 3 years, but I never stopped either. As they sat there holding hands in the morning light, Maya's sweet voice drifting from the hallway, Logan realized that everything he'd thought he'd lost when his marriage ended had just been given back to him, along with something he'd never even known he wanted. A daughter. A real family. A second chance at building something that mattered more than money or success or any of the things he'd once thought were important. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be paperwork and evaluations and difficult conversations. There would be moments when Maya's trauma surfaced, when the reality of raising a child who'd been through so much became overwhelming. There would be times when Logan and Hannah would have to fight for their renewed relationship just as hard as they'd once fought to end it. But as Maya appeared in the doorway with Hannah's reading glasses perched on her nose and announced that she'd found the perfect spot for her unicorn collection, Logan knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. For the first time in his adult life, Logan Pierce was exactly where he belonged. 6 months later, Logan stood in the doorway of what had once been Hannah's guest room and was now unmistakably the bedroom of a little girl who was deeply, completely loved. The walls were painted a soft lavender that Maya had chosen herself, with a border of dancing unicorns that Hannah had spent 3 weekends carefully applying. The bed was covered in a rainbow comforter that Maya had declared the most beautiful thing in the whole world, and the bookshelf Logan had built was already overflowing with stories about brave princesses and talking animals. But it wasn't the room's decoration that made Logan's chest tight with emotion. It was the sight of Maya herself, curled up in Hannah's lap in the rocking chair by the window, both of them absorbed in a book about a little elephant who learns to be brave. And Elmer realized that being different wasn't something to be ashamed of, Hannah read in the gentle voice she used for bedtime stories. It was something that made him special. Maya, now 6 and having just started first grade at the elementary school where Hannah had returned to teaching, listened with the focused attention she gave to everything Hannah read to her. Her dark hair had grown longer and healthier in the months since Logan had found her, and the haunted look that had once lived in her eyes had been replaced by the bright curiosity of a child who felt safe enough to wonder about the world. Just like how I'm special because I have 2 parents who chose me? Maya asked, a question she'd been exploring in various forms ever since the adoption had been finalized 2 months ago. Exactly like that, Hannah said, pressing a kiss to the top of Maya's head. You're our chosen daughter, which makes you extra special. Logan felt the familiar surge of fierce love and protectiveness that hit him every time he was reminded of how close they'd come to losing Maya to the system. The adoption process had been grueling. Months of home visits, interviews, evaluations, and paperwork that had tested every aspect of their rebuilt relationship. But every sleepless night spent filling out forms, every intrusive question from social workers, every moment of doubt and fear had been worth it for this. Maya safe and happy and completely, legally, permanently theirs. Daddy, are you going to read with us? Maya asked, having spotted Logan in the doorway. The word still sent a thrill through him every time she said it. It had taken her 3 months to start calling him Daddy and Hannah Mommy, but when she'd finally made the transition, it had been complete and wholehearted. I wouldn't miss it, Logan said, settling onto the floor beside the rocking chair. Maya immediately reached down to take his hand, another habit that never failed to amaze him. This little girl who'd been abandoned and traumatized still trusted so completely, still reached out for affection and connection with the fearless love of someone who'd found her safe harbor. "We're reading about Elmer," Maya informed him seriously. "He's an elephant who's different colors, and first he was sad about it, but then he learned it was good to be different." "That sounds like a very smart elephant," Logan said. "What do you think makes you different and special?" Maya considered this with the philosophical seriousness she brought to all of life's big questions. "Well, I have two parents who used to be married, then weren't married, then got married again because of me. And I lived on the street before I lived here. And I remember my first mommy, even though I have a new mommy now." Logan and Hannah exchanged a look over Maya's head. They'd worked hard with Maya's therapist to help her process her early trauma without shame or confusion, encouraging her to remember her birth mother with love while understanding that her life now was completely different and safe. "Those are all very special things about you," Hannah said gently. "And there are lots of other special things too, like how kind you are to other kids at school, and how you always want to help take care of our garden. And how you make the best pancakes in the whole family," Logan added, which made Maya giggle. "I only helped flip them once, and I got pancake on the ceiling." "Best pancakes ever," Logan insisted solemnly, which made Maya laugh harder. This was what Logan treasured most about their life now. Not the big milestones, though those mattered too, but these small, ordinary moments of connection and joy. Family game nights where Maya always won at Candyland through what Logan suspected was strategic cheating. Saturday morning pancake breakfasts where Maya was the official syrup distributor. Bedtime stories where a little girl who'd once had no one to tuck her in now had two parents fighting over who got to read the next chapter. "All right, little one," Hannah said as they finished the book. "Time for teeth brushing and pajamas." "But I'm not tired yet," Maya protested, which was what she said every single night, despite the fact that she'd be asleep within minutes of her head hitting the pillow. "I know," Hannah said with the patient smile of someone who'd had this exact conversation every night for 6 months. "But tomorrow is Saturday, which means pancakes and cartoons and helping Daddy in the garden." Maya's face lit up. Logan had discovered an unexpected passion for gardening, something that had started as a way to give Maya an outdoor activity and had evolved into a genuine hobby. Their backyard now boasted vegetable beds, a small herb garden, and Maya's special flower patch where she grew what she called happiness flowers, a riot of colorful zinnias and marigolds that bloomed from spring through fall. "Can we plant the new roses tomorrow?" Maya asked as Hannah carried her toward the bathroom. "We sure can," Logan called after them. "But only if you brush your teeth extra well tonight." As Hannah and Maya went through their nighttime routine, Logan remained in Maya's room, straightening books and picking up the art supplies that seemed to migrate to every surface despite their best organizational efforts. The walls were covered with Maya's artwork, finger paintings from school, crayon drawings of their family, always featuring himself, Hannah, and Maya holding hands under a rainbow, and the occasional masterpiece that Hannah insisted on framing and hanging in the living room. This room told the story of a little girl who'd gone from having nothing to having everything that mattered. Not just material possessions, though Logan had certainly gone overboard in that department, but love and security and the confident knowledge that she was wanted and cherished. "Daddy," Maya's voice called from the bathroom. "Come see how clean my teeth are." Logan dutifully admired Maya's dental hygiene achievements, then carried her back to her bed for the final bedtime ritual, a conversation about the day's best moments and tomorrow's possibilities. "What was your favorite part of today?" Hannah asked, settling back into the rocking chair while Logan tucked the covers around Maya. "Lunch," Maya said immediately. "Because you came to eat with me at school, and all my friends met you, and Emma said you were the prettiest mommy in the whole cafeteria." Hannah laughed. "Well, Emma has excellent taste. What about you, Logan? What was your favorite part?" Logan pretended to think seriously about this, though he already knew his answer. "When I picked you up from school and you ran to the car so fast you almost fell down because you were excited to show me the story you wrote about our family." Maya beamed. She'd recently discovered a love of creative writing, producing elaborate stories about princesses who lived in houses with gardens and had parents who made pancakes and read bedtime stories. Her teacher had told Hannah that Maya's stories always featured families who stayed together, who kept their promises, who created homes filled with love and safety. What about tomorrow? Hannah asked. What are you most excited about? Planting roses with Daddy, Maya said, and making pancakes, and maybe going to the park if it doesn't rain. Sounds like a perfect Saturday, Logan said, leaning down to kiss Maya's forehead. Sweet dreams, little one. Sweet dreams, Daddy. Sweet dreams, Mommy. Hannah kissed Maya's other cheek, and they dimmed the lights, leaving only the small night light that Maya still needed, a remnant of the fears that occasionally surfaced from her early childhood. In the hallway, Logan wrapped his arms around Hannah from behind, and they stood together listening to Maya's soft breathing through the partially open door. She's really ours, Hannah said quietly, leaning back against Logan's chest. She's really ours, Logan agreed. Sometimes I still can't believe it. Believe what? That we got her, or that we got each other back? Both, Logan said honestly. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. And now you have everything you never knew you wanted, Hannah finished. If you made it to the end, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. It truly means the world to us. See you in the next one.